Man, I'm having so much fun. This is a $1.6 trillion industry. I'm talking about the food and beverage space. If you're not having fun, you're in the wrong place. Yes, it's hard work, but my gosh, the companies, the brands, the flavors, the experiences, the missions, it's fantastic. But some of the brands are different, better, and special. They're the ones who are able to really compete and vie for customer loyalty. Look, I know you want to make your brand different, better, and special. I know you yourself want to be different, better, and special. That's my mission. That's why you're here. Join me on this journey as I interview CEOs and founders from all the different companies within the food and beverage industry so we can discover what they're doing, so we can take that information back, digest it, and become better ourselves, and to help our companies take on different strategies, pick the right technology, pick the right partners, and of course, you got to have great tasting food. You got to have great tasting beverages. Packaged goods. If it doesn't taste good, you're lost. I'm sorry. You're going to lose millions. If you're new here, take the 5-episode challenge. Go back, pick out some brands, some CEOs, some topics. If you love the content, subscribe. You're going to find it on every podcast platform once or twice a week. But I also publish them on LinkedIn, because that's where we kind of hang out. So when you see it on LinkedIn, stop by, make a comment, share it back into your food and beverage network. I would appreciate it. The brands would appreciate it. To all my loyal listeners, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Thanks for coming along on this mission for the past 2 years. If you are considering a strategic job change, message me. Let's have a confidential conversation. If your brand is growing and you need to attract experts, you also need to contact me because I have created a different, better, and special recruiting system. I promise you, no other search firm in America is doing that. Who am I? I'm Tony Moore. I'm an expert food and beverage headhunter, semi-professional podcaster, and I'm here each and every week. Stay tuned for this week's episode. Welcome to Winning at Work. This is Tony. And, I used to travel to California once every year for a couple of weeks. There was a seminar that I would go to, and I loved all the new restaurants. And there's a whole different category of food and restaurants on the West Coast. And recently I discovered I don't want to say a trending restaurant because this is more than that. It's more than a trending restaurant. This is an organization that has over 180 locations. They've got 150 roughly in development, and they're throughout 22 states. And by the way, Steve, I'm looking forward to when we do open up Georgia.
Me too.
I know you're getting close. You're getting close.
We'll be there shortly.
You're dancing around. I know we need to go ahead and just come on into Georgia. And I'm really pleased to welcome in Steve Schulze today. He's the CEO of Nekter Juice Bar. And we've got a lot of things that we want to talk about within the restaurant space, trends, but particularly he's got a unique strategy how he goes about franchising. And that's a very important topic for many entrepreneurs that are trying to expand their mission, their purpose. Do they do it with company-owned stores? Would they rather do it through the franchise model? So we have a lot of interesting things to talk about. Steve, welcome into Winning at Work today, sir.
Tony, appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation, and all's good on our end. So
I would say all is well on your end with 180 locations. In fact, we were just kind of joking around getting all of our tech issues sorted out. But for a man with 180 locations, you've got a full head of hair. I would imagine that would put a lot of pressure and stress on a CEO.
Well, surprisingly, I don't think it does. Nekter's been a success, and I'm not so sure it's me as much as it is our team. I think that the team that we've assembled, I'm not a micromanager. I give them a lot of responsibilities and a lot of runway. I trust them implicitly, and I'm there usually for the global view and for the vision and things of that nature. That doesn't mean I don't stress, because I do. And that doesn't mean I don't push, because I do push hard, and I'm not one of those, pat on your back, warm kind of guys sometimes. But I do think that, culture, camaraderie, teamwork, the journey of the folks, and everybody that's been here together is what's made Nekter special, for me and Alexis and others.
Well, listen, you really touched on something there, because we've had this conversation before. We don't get into it as a regular topic, but culture does eat strategy for breakfast. If you've got the right people, the right mission, and the right vibe, then you can really overcome a lot of issues. And you guys are growing. You definitely, there's obviously something that's working, and I would love to dig into that a little bit more. But before we do, tell me a little bit about just the origin story. How did this come about? Why, why Nekter, and why start it the way you did?
The impetus behind Nekter, was really a simple idea. The idea was that, back, in 2008, 9, 10, we were looking at, this category, the juice space. Sometimes I go work out, and run 40 minutes and, get a smoothie, and 6 months later I still weigh the same, and I couldn't really figure it out. It didn't make sense. And one day I was at one of the legacy brands, and I opened up and looked at the nutritional deal on it, and sure enough, I had more calories, more sugar, more carbs than I lost in my entire.
Then you burned off in the 40 minutes you were on the treadmill, right?
Yes. Yeah, and so I think what happened was, I think that whether it be the Jamba Juices of the world or whomever, I think they started with great authenticity when they first started, 30, 40 years ago, or whenever it was. And I think, like a lot of companies, they went down that slippery slope. And so the idea that Alexis and I had was to reinvent the juice space the way that Starbucks reinvented the coffee experience. And it was my belief that we needed to get rid of fillers, get rid of the sugars, the crap, the ice cream, the yogurts.
All that hidden, the fats and all the unnecessary sugars.
Oh, it was awful. What was going in those drinks was awful. Simultaneously, you did have the alternative of things like the organic juice bars and some of these, alternative markets, like a Mother's Market that sold juices. But to me, those were very intimidating. And I visualized going in there and having like a carrot juice and having to choke it down, or a wheatgrass shot or something. So when we looked at it, she and I are not big, Alexis and I are not big fans of huge menus. We like things very simple, more like In-N-Out Burger and such. It's amazing.
Oh, I love In-N-Out.
It's the best. And so what we did is we came up with 3 categories: juices, smoothies, bowls. We had 6 juices, 6 smoothies, 4 bowls. And, I was tasked with, basically running the company and getting up and started, and Alexis with, formulating the drinks. And, and I think that's where the real magic happened, in the sense of, our goal was to make it affordable, make it accessible, make it authentic, make it real. And again, not like letting processed stuff through the doors. And again, our juices obviously are pure and whole fresh juices delivered daily. Our smoothies have house-made nut milk in them. House-made nut milk and coconut water is only the 2 things we allow. And then we have organic acai that makes the bowls. And,
that's a very popular superfruit right now. Acai.
It is. So there's a category that's gone up quite a bit, and our bowls, I think, are great. And we're the first people to put it on the menu as a main category item, back then. And and it's funny because we started Nekter. It's a 900 square foot location. It was a former Starbucks. They had left over some equipment in there, and I called the landlord and asked to buy the equipment for $5,000, and he's like, okay, And then I talked to a buddy of mine who actually was over last night, who was an architect, who's a landscape architect, not just an architect. I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this store. Can you design something up for me? And he didn't know anything about retail, and frankly, I had never been in the retail space. I'd never been in the restaurant space, never been in the franchise space. Neither had Alexis, and but he drew it up, and we looked at this literally as sort of a side project. We thought it was good for the community. We thought it was good for us. And we invested about $50,000 to open up that first store. And today we'll finish the year at a little over $125 million in sales. So,
yeah, that's incredible.
So
that is incredible. And I was noticing too, you've got a pretty good revenue target for your franchisees too. I noticed that it's one of the highest in the industry too. So it's definitely coming down to the bottom line too for your operators.
Well, that's the only way you've got. If people don't put the franchisee first, I think they're crazy. And people have to understand that's who your real guest is. You've got for us, we treat our goal is treat one guest at a time. When the very first guest came in, if they could walk in the store, walk out in a better mood than they walked in, and if we managed the finance okay, and there were a few bucks left over at the end of the day, we did a good job. If they walked out in a bad mood, we didn't really deserve any money. And so we view the franchise partners and the guests the same ways. You've got to treat them with respect, with integrity, try and understand what their needs are, and try and meet them. And I think that if everybody on your team is in sync and the culture is correct, and you can't just buy culture, you can't just invent culture, you can't just write down this is what culture. Just like branding, people say, "Oh, I'm going to build a brand." If everybody could be Nike, they would be, but you can't do just let's do it. It's much deeper and much more than that. So.
Yeah, well, I think what I really like about the brand that you're building, I was looking kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive beyond the bowls and the superfood smoothies. You've got these grab and go bottles, which I think are so necessary now for that quick. It's even quicker, right? You just come in and get exactly what you want. You got the wellness shot. You've got the juice cleanser. You're really covering wellness really across the board. So you're really meeting the consumer pretty much where they're at. So I'm sure that's evolved since 2010 and then 2012 when you started your franchise aspirations.
Not only that, Tony, but the timing of the podcast is ideal here in the sense of in 2010, as I had stated a moment ago, that our goal was to reinvent the juice space the way Starbucks reinvented the coffee experience. And our goal this year, when we started 2022, was to reinvent the food experience within the juice and food and category, within the juice and smoothie category. And what I mean by that is if you go to, again, some of these legacy brands in the airport, you're going to see a sausage and egg McMuffin, a soft pretzel, I don't know about you, but
carb bomb.
If I go to my nutritionalist, I don't think that's the first thing they're going to ask.
No.
I have breakfast every day. And so it was our idea that space and that category need to be reinvented. People are on the go, so we wanted to make it a grab-and-go category. We want it to be functional, meaning, proteins, calorie, depending on what people needed, snacks. And so we've been working for about 6-8 months on it. We'll be releasing it starting in January. It'll be fully evolved over the next few months, but basically the entire concept behind it is that we'll be dropping the name Juice Bar from Nekter, and Nekter will be juice, smoothies, and grab-and-go foods that are functional, that provide a purpose, they can get you through the day, and it's an exciting time for us to evolve once again.
Well, you're right on track with the functional. I've got a friend who wants to get into the food business, and I said, if you learn nothing from me, all my guests will tell you it's got to be food plus one.
Exactly right. It does.
Right. It right now, and so you're obviously playing in that space. I'm kind of curious before we get into our main topic, which is specifically how you franchise and kind of how you're expanding. Tell me a little bit what you're seeing in terms of trends right now in the restaurant space.
Yeah, no, it's a big topic overall. I think that I think that, we hit it on a second ago. I think that people are looking for function. They're looking for purpose. There's with the economy, they're looking for value. They're looking for, speed of service. They're starting to look for experience once again, where a lot of it was, you've seen people start to go back into restaurants. Are
you seeing foot traffic up?
Foot traffic is up flat right now.
Still flat? Okay.
It's been up it's been up the year. We'll comp positive system wide on all platforms. But this time, I should say, basically it's flat year over year, maybe up a little bit. But the guest counts are tricky just because it's the ordering mechanism has changed so much.
Oh yeah, it's hard to track now, right? Yeah.
Oh, we go in the stores, there'd be lines out the door and so forth. now we have so many orders through our app and through our DSPs, such as DoorDash, Postmates, and things like that. At some points it can make up over 40-50% of the sales, which is a tremendous amount of revenue.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the number one metric you use now. It used to be, right? You look at foot traffic and you understand how well everything is going in the marketplace.
Yeah, and before, in our space, it was easy to identify different things, meaning for a while it was a cleanse. You probably remember that years ago. There was like a rage that, and we'd have people busting down the doors January 1st, and
along with that new gym membership.
Exactly right. And so we we see people still doing the cleanse, but it certainly isn't what it is. And so for us, we believe it's more of a lifestyle shift, just small changes. If you could just eat 10% better, if you eat 2,500 calories a day, if you could swap out 250 calories to be just a little bit healthier, just little baby steps, maybe that turns into 15% and 20%, and then it becomes authentic to you. Because I just don't believe that these dramatic shifts, even a cleanse for that matter. I could cleanse for 3 days or 10 days, but I'm going to in and out the next day after that, and I'm probably back
exactly.
Pretty slow.
Yeah, I think what you're really pointing to is that you really want to inspire people to have a holistic, healthy lifestyle. And I understand you guys are going through some changes, inside the restaurant too, kind of changing the look and the vibe to kind of increase that experience, maybe to kind of drive that point home a little bit more. Can you talk a little bit about how you're building loyalty though with that foot traffic? Because you want that experience, you want them to come back. What's your overall strategy or thought?
Loyalty makes up a huge portion of our business and our guests and our insights and things like that. And a guy named John Asher, who was our CMO, took this head on in 2016, and we were way ahead of the curve, at least in our space. And he started in 2016, and we had basically 0 users, or maybe 10,000 at the time. And fast forward to today, and we're at I think over 1.3 million users on our app. We're going through a very large upgrade, meaning we're developing a very interactive app that will have AI components, tracking components, easy ordering systems. It'll be, let's say that you order juice, I order a smoothie, and automatically it can figure out in itself. You may get a text or an email or an alert on your phone or whatever it may be, if you're a juice, you're going to juice and maybe protein things. If I'm a bowl guy, I'm going to get some sort of bowl plus this sort of offer. So there's a lot of, I'm not really.
I love that. I think that is it's so smart to do that. And of course, with all the new, technology that is built in phones, you've got a lot of other marketing, opportunities when people walk by, they get close. There's all kinds of things you can do to, get their attention and keep driving that loyalty. I'm curious. I've seen this discussed, and I don't know if this is something that you even want to discuss or even try to approach. What's your opinion on dynamic pricing? I know we didn't really discuss that ahead of time, but do you have any thoughts on that?
There's been a lot of discussion about that lately. We've looked at it. We actually had a large, Ernst & Young type marketing firm do an analysis on what they felt it would do in our space on the whole dynamic pricing, because we certainly have products that the cost of goods is low. We have other products that cost of goods is high, and for whatever reason, we charge the same price. We have different times of the day. We have different, regions. And so, they came back, and they're, in our space anyway, there wasn't really a strong push, for us to go to dynamic pricing. The only pricing modifications that we make are for our franchise partners. We have 4 different levels of tiers of pricing. For me, we're in California as an example. We obviously have, or I shouldn't say obviously, but I think it's probably pretty clear to most people, we have the highest labor costs, construction costs, operational costs. Yet, as a CEO, I've always demanded that we remain on the tier 1 and the lowest pricing, simply based on the idea that the guest is the most valuable asset. I'd rather keep that guest coming and coming and coming. And we've seen occasionally have franchise partners that will sort of step on the limb, and I'll see them raise their prices, much more than I'd recommended, but I can only limit them so far. And sure enough, you'll start seeing the guest counts come down, and you get into a soft economy, it's tough to get those guests back. So I've been more of the believer of keep it affordable, keep it accessible, keep the repeat guests, and give them value.
Yeah, the where I've seen, I think the most success is when you're looking at, hey, busy times. Sometimes you can flex up a little bit. And of course, when times are slower, you can offer more discounts. So that to me, seemed like a good compromise, but you guys are looking at that. I was just kind of curious because it's kind of a hot topic.
No, and I do think that there are more simplistic ways to do it in the sense of $5 Friday and things of that nature. But I think
Correct.
that you can get a little bit too, for us anyway, when we've done any testing on it, you get too complicated, or somebody felt that they got ripped off because they paid this when they should have paid that at this time, and all that kind of stuff. You get chargebacks, and
That's the problem.
we're more a quick service type thing, like a Starbucks. If all of a sudden you had dynamic pricing in Starbucks and it cost you more at 9 o'clock than it did at noon, there could be some issues. So.
Look, I know you've got a lot of, practical wisdom that I want to try to pull out of you before we get into, how you approach franchise sales. Do you have just a couple key kind of life learnings from growing this business over the past, 10, 12 years?
I don't know if it applies to this space or really any space for that matter, but, when young entrepreneurs or otherwise come to me and ask, whether it be about a franchise or whether it be about any business for that matter, the first thing I'll say, which you've heard a lot of people say, is, block out the white noise. Too many people ask too many people's opinions. People go out there and they talk to their friends and whether it be envy or whether it be just a negative attitude, and they find that to be a reason to opt out of what their opportunity is. So I think people have to, block out that white noise. They have to be willing to act. I mean, you just got to, there's nothing wrong with failure. And I've failed plenty of times, but it's never crossed my mind. I've never, not once in all the years I've been in business, when I've, lost it all in a company, I'll just get back up on that pony and, ride it again.
You just have that mindset though, right? And I've discussed that here too. Failure or fail is first attempt in learning. And my other big philosophy is act, learn, adjust. And that is definitely what you're, putting out there.
Yeah. And I do agree with that. And it takes a certain mindset and it takes a certain constitution to have that personality, I suppose, to do it. But the other thing I think that people really get misguided on is, passion and motivation, so to speak, in the sense of, do what you're passionate about and the money will come. And a simple example is this, I just turned 60 last year. When I was 15 years old, do you think my dream was to make smoothies and juices at 60 or at 50 start a juice and smoothie?
It wasn't?
I know you find that surprise.
What?
No, it might have been, but I'm just saying.
It was, how many more lawns can I cut because I want to buy this new bicycle or something? I don't know.
Exactly right. I was mowing lawns and I was going to 7-Eleven and getting Big Gulps and Snickers and things of that nature.
And, and Topps, the latest Topps baseball card pack.
Exactly right. And so and what I mean by that is that, you hear, find what you're passionate about and the money will come. And the passion isn't the end result. The passion is the journey. It's the people. There's been nothing I've been more passionate about than Nekter, but it really has nothing to do with, yes, it's nice that we're selling. I love selling a product that's good and healthy for the community and giving back to the community, but it's the people, it's the everyday, it's the whole process and the journey. And I've got a lot of friends that are former, big, professional hockey players, football players, and basketball players that are friends of mine. And I've asked them the same thing. And, when they look back at their careers, they don't miss the Sunday afternoon and 70,000 people in the stand or 15,000 at the hockey game. They miss the camaraderie, the practice, the teamwork, just the process they go through every single day. It's all about the process. It's not that, the result is all that hard work paid off. And that's sort of the excitement of it all. But, and so I think that people really have to understand that if they're looking simply to make money, which I think money is important, and the end result has to provide an income for you. But if all you want to do is make money, and I meet entrepreneurs all the time, I'll drive down 17th Street. And if I see a concept I like, I'll go and sit down and call them up and say, hey, we'd like to have breakfast. And not to drone on a little bit, but I'll give you a really quick story.
No, please do, because I'm not even familiar with the 17th Street.
I'm on 17th Street right here. So right out the back,
okay.
2 cars going by. But anyway, this guy had a new sandwich concept, and he had about 3 or 4 stores, and it looked a little interesting. So I sat down and had coffee with him. I said, I'm paraphrasing the story, but I said, what's your goal? And he said, my goal is to get it to 15 million. And he was about late 20s, I want to say, maybe 30. And he said, my goal is to get it to 13, 15 stores as fast as possible, sell it for $10 million, retire. And as soon as he said that, I knew that I had zero interest in investing, zero interest in being involved in it. and he never was going to make it. And he did. And he hasn't. I mean, he's still got a few stores lingering out there, but the other entrepreneurs that I see that tell me a different story, you see different results.
This guy's motive was wrong.
Well, I think I think what happens is it's not coming from an authentic place. I don't think.
Right.
I think that when things get difficult, you're not willing to make the various sacrifices, that you should or you would. Meaning that, say, when we first started Nekter, the first several years, 6:00 on a Sunday morning, I might be running around to all the organic markets picking up coconut water because we've run out. And to me, that was exciting. That was fun. I really enjoyed it. But if I've got a business that's kind of doing okay, or I don't really love it, am I really going to get up at 6:00 and do it? Am I going to, I'll get that, I'll get it later on. So it takes a certain commitment, it takes a certain constitution, and it has to be for the right reasons and come from an authentic place, I think.
Yeah, because people can see right through it, as you did. I mean, whoever this person was, unfortunately, they let a good opportunity kind of literally just kind of walk by, because who knows what benefits, you could have offered to them. Let's talk about how you approach franchise sales, because I said at the top, you've got, it looks like 150 stores in development. You're in 22 states. I'm pulling for Georgia at some point. Not so subtle plug. Let's talk about your approach.
When we started Nekter in 2010, we had the one location and organically went to a second and then a third and a fourth and a fifth. And, from the very beginning, we got a lot of franchise inquiries and requests. But, Alexis and I at that time, we were worried about the brand integrity, the culture, the quality of the product. It was our name on it. We took it very personally. We also didn't know whether is a regional brand or a national brand. We didn't even really know what the name brand really meant, frankly, at that time. And so we got to the point where we had about 13 locations, and it was 2012. And so we had gotten so many franchise inquiry requests. I don't know how many, but a ton. And so we decided to award 6 franchise agreements, and we decided to do it, award those 6, and then sit on it for 2 years. Not award not a single other franchise. And the reason for that was I find it to be a very iterative relationship in that, it's, how are they going to react to us? How are we going to react to them? Are they going to carry the culture? Are they going to carry the products? Are we going to be able to support them? Are they going to get value for what we're providing to them or not? A lot of things along those lines. And I also thought that, heck, we've only been at 2-3 years. We've only have 13 stores. What system am I really selling that values or is warranted for me to receive 6 or 8% of the gross sales? So I thought we had some work to do. So we did that from 2012 to 14. It ended up, to our surprise, we found out that the franchise partners, frankly, ran the stores better than the corporate stores. They were more profitable. The culture was terrific because they were hands-on and really knew their team, their team members, and their partners. Where all of a sudden you get too big from a corporate perspective, and you lose touch with knowing everybody's name, so to speak. Those stores all over the place. So in 2014, we took those learnings. We spent the year developing our franchise model, and then rolled it out in late 14-15. And when we did that, I was very specific in how I wanted to do it. While we had inquiries from all over the country, I wanted to keep it in the Southwest. So we're in Southern California, Arizona, Texas, along the Sun Belt and so forth. So if I got a request from, Boise or St. Louis or, Minneapolis or Philadelphia at that particular time, we just simply would say at this time we're not doing it. And the reason for that is I think sometimes you see franchise partners, you see a couple in our space do it, where they have sort of a shotgun approach. And next thing you know, they've got one franchise partner in Boise and one in Phoenix and one in St. Louis. And to me, you're not getting any, where's the brand awareness? How can corporate, if you're in, say, in North Carolina, where you are today, how can you support somebody in Idaho? The cost to fly a team out there to train, to go out there on a quarterly basis and work with them and cross-functional, and to get the consolidation of, the cost of goods and things of that nature. It just didn't make any sense to me to go ahead and do that. The only time I think it makes sense to me is if you're in a in a race for real estate, say in a sandwich or a fast casual pizza concept, and you just have to get that space. But in our space, I thought that was very detrimental. I've seen some competitors do it. I don't understand it. And I've seen a lot of their stores fail. So we did that for the first great number of years. And then just over the last couple of years, started going into other states. Now we're in about 22 states, I'd say.
You bring up something kind of interesting. You talk about the brand awareness. If there was a state that you identify that you really wanted to get into and you're bringing in the first franchisor, would they be able to operate at a, I don't want to use the word discount, but to get into the system versus the 10th or the 12th store that you've already built the brand awareness? So that, 10th new store that comes in is riding the wave of everyone else that built it up. Is that even a thing, a concept?
No, it's a big thing, and you hit directly on something. And I'll give you an example. If we're going to go into, let's say you're going to let's say that you're going to be a franchisee in Atlanta for the sake of our.
Now we're talking,
right? And our franchise fee is about $35,000.
Okay.
And I've instructed our team that, I expect that $35,000 to be reinvested directly into that Atlanta market. What I want to see is 3 stores in that area as soon as possible. And the only way we can do it is by making that franchise partner successful. And the only way we can make that franchise or help that franchise partner be successful is through brand awareness, getting on radio, getting on TV, getting press releases, getting a street team out in the field, running promotions, every thing in the sun to go ahead and do it. And, when we've done that, the acceleration of that franchise partner and his multi-unit growth accelerates exponentially. Because you're right, you go into, right now we have 30 stores, give or take, 30 locations in Phoenix. I could open up a store and I barely have to send 10 cents and they'll know who I am and where we are and things of that nature. I go to Atlanta, they don't know who the hell I am. And a lot of these, when I was referring to these other franchise groups, sometimes they're using that $35,000 as, a means of operations. They don't have the capital, and so they're using the franchise fees. As
it's like income versus you're making it as investment.
No, I look at it as investment. So I don't tie that to our projections on profitability. I tie that to reinvesting in the community.
Yeah, I love that. I imagine that you're also seeking out like-minded entrepreneurs, that are also kind of focused on that brand mission, right? That share kind of your same passion.
Yeah, no, I think people have to share the passion, for health and wellness in the community. That doesn't mean they have to be able to run a marathon or anything. It just means that, that's, something that they believe in. And one of the other things that we learned that I didn't touch on earlier when we were going through part of this testing phase was, that too many brands don't go far enough in the proof of concept. As an example, we went into Denver, we went into Dallas, all these locations we're talking about. We went in with corporate locations. Is it fair for me to ask you to spend, your life savings and go to a market that we've never been to? We don't know anything about. It's cold. It's, so therefore, we went into Denver, and sure enough, Denver, you'd think on a Sunday snowing when the Broncos are playing that sales would be soft. That store reopened up in 2012 and first year did over $1 million. I think it's done over $1 million, since then every year. And now we've expanded and grown the market. And what we also found was that you're talking about our AUVs. Our AUVs are probably about $200,000 more than, anybody else in our space. But the reason for that is we're more of a lifestyle brand. Our season starts January 1st, kind of like you referred to the gym memberships and
right.
Health and wellness. That kicks off January 1st, where the traditional brands are more in the yogurt, ice cream type or viewed in that category. Their season kicks off usually spring break goes to Labor Day, and then soft from there. So going to these areas such as Texas, going to areas such as Colorado and otherwise, I think was an important test for us to see if this is something that could go in the flyover states and be national.
Yeah, that really just makes sense that you go in and kind of warm our market up. I think that would put people at ease to know that, you're putting your own money, time, reputation on the line as well to, as you say, kind of warm it up. I love that. Something else that you mentioned to me, could you explain what you mean by transparency?
Well, there's a few things. One is, when we talk about franchising in general, one of the things that you'll see, and you see in the market, anybody could look it up, and it doesn't matter the industry. It could be our space. It could be, fitness, health, wellness. It could be anything really. And you could look at the corporations or franchisors and find out how many locations they have. And quite often you'll find they'll have, say, 1 to 3 to say 5 franchise corporate locations, and the rest will be franchised. Now, if I owned 1 or 2 or 3 in, say, just in Newport Beach as an example, what learnings does that give me to sell franchises in Houston and Dallas and whatever? I mean, what value does that, 6% and the 2% ad fund and all that kind of stuff? What kind of systems have I really built to justify, the ends there? And I just don't think that enough franchise partners think it through enough from that perspective. Now they think, oh, we've done it. We have, processes and systems, but by that they usually mean they have ordering platforms, meaning for cost of goods or labor metrics or whatever. But, we still have over 30 something corporate stores, and we'll test everything in our corporate stores before we go, to our franchise partners. I'm going to test on ourselves first. I don't want to put them at risk. And you also got to understand that, different DMAs have different requirements, meaning that what somebody desires in Newport is slightly different than what they desire in Houston. So when we do our marketing calendar, we have a national marketing calendar, of course, but we also have a regional DMA that covers each DMA because, and the contribution to that meaning of that is that the franchise partners in that region have a conference call with our marketing team to determine, hey, what is their guest looking for? What are the needs? What are the franchise partners? And we try and develop, messaging and or products that fit into that DMA. I mean, for the most part, everybody has almost the exact same menu items, but the messaging, or education might be a little bit different.
So maybe I shouldn't be looking for barbecue then when you come to Georgia.
Don't look for a barbecue smoothie or something like that.
That one didn't make it out of the lab, did it, Steve?
Yeah. So as far as and your initial question was the transparency part, and I think that transparency goes to the ingredients. It goes to our corporate location. I've always had, say, an open door policy. Sort of glass door, glass office. People come in anytime they want. There's no task too big or small for me or for anybody else. So our belief is we all, pitch in. We're clear on and transparent to anybody and everybody. And, even when I talk to the competitors, I'm happy to go out to dinner and talk to them and share ideas. And a lot of them I've known quite well.
Yeah, I think the vibe I'm getting from you is you just don't want to give a canned presentation. You want your brands to be authentic. So that's really how you're presenting yourself to people that come in that would want to seriously consider this. So you're just going to, just have that open dialogue. You just want to make sure that it's a good fit for everybody. I mean, that makes sense because you're going to end up putting a lot of time and money behind the wrong people, and you just can't afford to do it, not with as many moving parts as you have right now in this organization.
No, and I certainly will be, transparent and raw and unfiltered, and some language will be used that isn't maybe appropriate for this podcast.
I have a mute button if you need to let a few things out.
No, that's all right.
I love that we've really covered a lot of ground here in a pretty short period of time, Steve. As we start to wrap up, is there anything that you wanted me to ask that I just didn't get around to?
You've asked a lot of, good and insightful and interesting questions that I think people want to know the answers to. I think that if it's a potential franchise not just necessarily for Nekter, but for anybody, I think they ought to look at, the franchisor, how many locations they have, what they're really getting from the franchise partner, really run the metrics and understand why they're getting into that business. Are they getting into the business because they think it's going to make money? Are they getting into the business because they think it's something they're passionate about? Is it something that they could scale? I mean, you could start with one Nekter franchise and you're going to do well. But we have, say a group in the Empire of California, they've got, I think, 16 locations open. They just signed for 15 more. And they've got a huge multi-million-dollar operation, multi-million-dollar EBITDA, and so it depends on what. And so sometimes people look at it too isolated. I would hope that
too narrow.
too narrow. And I think that people should look at it and say, okay, hey, do I want one? Do I want three? You know, what am I really looking for in my life and the change and the style? And then, you know, do your due diligence. And, you know, again, whether it be with us or fitness or anything, just do your due diligence, make sure that you culturally fit with that company and they share your same beliefs.
Yeah, I think with as many stores that you now currently are operating and with all the different partners you have, I think anyone could come in and they want to go from a 0 to a 5 store, or they've got a bigger vision. You probably have enough people throughout the whole system really to give those stories and to give that, practical advice. I think that's what's unique, about trying to go through you would be that, you've got this platform built.
We've got the platform, we've got the system, we know that it works. We've got the franchise partners that are more than happy to help others, achieve their success in their multi-unit group. So if somebody wants to do it, say in Atlanta, and they've got 16 stores in the empire, they'd love to see somebody else be successful because again, it helps everybody. And there's nothing better than hearing, we have so many success stories and so many different stories from so many different regions. It's fun to hear.
I mean, it's taken on a life of its own at this point. So I think it's like, watching your kids grow up. It's like, look what they're accomplishing. Look what they're helping other people do. It's got to be a very rewarding feeling. I'm going to be traveling to Tennessee. I don't know that I'm going to be making it up to Knoxville, but I want to say y'all have some stuff up in Knoxville, I thought, up in that area.
Tennessee Ted, he's a terrific guy.
I'm going to have to swing in. I'm just going to have to give this thing.
2 weeks ago, and actually, I own a house down in Cabo, and he's going to use it for his honeymoon here in a couple months.
Very nice.
And he's a terrific guy, and we'll be opening some stores in Nashville in the not too distant future. So,
I like it, Tennessee Ted. I'm coming your way.
There you go,
Steve. I really appreciate you taking time out to. We did kind of a flyby. I think I wanted to pull a lot of information from you. I think it's been very eye-opening, and appreciate you again making time out, checking out your new podcast studio. For those of you, this is an audio-only podcast. He's got a beautiful studio. You're forcing me to up my game.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah,
gonna have to step this up. We're gonna have to move out of the vacation rental and get back into the Georgia market so I can get back to my normal studio.
Exactly. And if I get back your way, I'll make sure to look you up and we'll go grab a drink or something.
Absolutely. I would love that. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Tony, really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the day, rest of the week, and enjoy the holidays.